I am finally able to advocate for my own safety and like put mitigations in place that actually, functionally, and scientifically work.
Welcome to Mitigation Media, a podcast where I talk to people about mitigating things like airborne viruses in the modern world. My name is Dustin, I'm your host, and our first guest is William White, who you just heard, the drummer of the band Glass Beach. We cover everything from day-to-day mitigations to how to produce a full tour with Glass Beach. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the first episode of Mitigation Media. What's up, William? I'm Dustin. This is brand new. We have no idea what we're really doing, but I'm going to just go with it and learn as I go, as with everything in life.
Yeah, cool. Hi. Like Dustin said, I'm William. My pronouns are they, them.
Mine are he, they. I'm in Los Angeles.
And I'm in near Seattle in the Pacific Northwest.
I found your band through a photo that you guys posted in, what was that, April? March?
Yeah, it was March or April, around that time.
Well, to be honest, I think I first saw you, William, was saying how you should show up to a show.
Oh, yeah, the photo of me in my flow mask.
Yeah, I think that was the first thing where I was like, oh, these guys need to be on my radar.
Cool.
And so to like use that as kind of like an intro for myself, you know, I'm a music fan. First and foremost, my background's in TV. I was a TV producer. Maybe I still am. I don't know. I did comedy for a while, in and out of that kind of stuff. But I've always been a music fan. And like when the pandemic hit, that was the one thing that hurt me the most. And so like when 2024 came around, I won't give my full kind of backstory right now, but when 2024 came around and I saw you guys doing shows, doing your best to mitigate as much as possible, that hit me as a fan and as somebody trying to figure out how to navigate the current world to go to shows. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. And I can give a little bit of a background on me then. I also, I mean, like, pre-start of the pandemic, this ongoing pandemic will just be, I think we should be like, we're going to say some stuff like what you just said, for example, of like, oh, like you love live music and that was like what hit you the hardest. Like, obviously that is not what hit us the hardest. Like,
Sure.
This is, I just want to be clear, like for anybody listening who like would roll their eyes at like something like that, like the base level for us is that this is an ongoing, like disabling and like deadly pandemic. Like we mitigate a lot in our personal lives and push and encourage people to have precautions and mitigate themselves. And for a little bit of like my background, like, yes, I'm a musician and I was playing a lot more before the pandemic. And now I just recently stepped away from live music. So my final show just got done it was July 26th was
Wow.
my final show, like live show. And like, that is to say, like, maybe if there was like an outdoor mask required, like high quality mask required show, not during a surge, I might be comfortable engaging in like that sort of live music activity again. But as for right now, it's a little it's hard, like ethically, morally, I struggle with it personally. Like, I don't want to be disabled or die. Well, disabled more than I am. I don't want more going on. And I really, really feel for our audience members, especially we have like a lot of younger audience. Our fans skew to like teens, basically. And that's something I'm really painfully uncomfortable with. Just like creating an environment where maybe like 500 kids are all going to get in a room together and be sharing air and that kind of thing. Yeah, I personally am of the belief that performers and musicians, artists, like theater troupes, improvisers, like anybody who is doing some sort of a live, like community art-based gathering, whether it be for capital or for not, have a moral obligation to be like making it as safe and non-transmittable as possible as far as like viruses. And I mean, like, I feel the same way about like ADA compliance and stuff like that. It's just there's a responsibility. If you want to be doing this stuff, you have a responsibility, and that's how I feel.
I echo and agree 100%. we met at your last show in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That was the only time we met. I was helping Airgasmic deliver air filters, or I guess pick up air filters when I met you. And so like, you know, we met in person, but like that was your last show you're going to do. And like, I just want to comment on like the intersection of, right, morals and action is what you're living by. And like, you know, I feel that the same way. I'm still going to shows. I don't perform currently. I used to do improv back way pre-pandemic. I haven't done improv in a long time. I used to be on TV sets a lot of the time. And so like, I feel like both of us are examples of kind of like, oh, well, our morals don't line up with the activities we used to do. So now we've had to readjust and figure out in 2024, well, what do we do now?
Yeah. It's actually, I mean, if I could say, like, it's interesting because like pre 2020, like pre like this pandemic, there were already like a small subset of people that loved music and were already left out of the community. And I think part of the pandemic, like if you can possibly ever say there's any like tiny little like positives that come out of this stuff, I think it shook a lot of people into being like, oh, like we were just like straight up leaving people out, like not having, you know, accessible like live streamable live shows, performances, music, like that kind of thing. I like having these accessible things where there are so many people who just can't like leave their house, or I mean honestly, like you and I also did improv. And the big issue I suppose is that like a lot of the people doing art and like creating stuff are usually like very poor at our level or like otherwise. And
yes, I did my 20s in New York City. We were all poor as shit.
Yeah, and unfortunately like a lot of accessibility is like paywalled. Like it's just the way that like that sort of stuff is. I always thought about having like ASL interpreters for improv shows, like, and how like awesome that would be, but that's like you don't want to, you know, have people doing that kind of labor for you and not being able to compensate them and like that kind of thing. But that's not an excuse for like not having accessibility and stuff. So it is like, it's a complicated space that at least me personally, I really actually started digging into disability justice and like the way that activists had gotten like inklings of rights here and there up to this point. And I have a friend of mine who is really involved in like activism and organizing in the Minnesota area, who like also pushed me a lot to like invest time into thinking about COVID as a disability issue,
Sure.
like way before I was really even thinking about it that way. So I have the benefit of like having people, and not just the pandemic shaking me, but like just like everybody being like, pay attention.
Yeah, I think, and I'll speak for myself, but like, you know, I think we have kind of like touchstones in our lives of people who kind of push us in that direction, right? So, you know, I had a dear friend who was disabled and it was immunocompromised. That was kind of where I started learning about disability justice. Like, oh, we need to be thinking about inclusion for everybody, right? Like, you know, as a lot of white Americans don't even think about the vulnerable in some ways. They don't even look in certain directions because it's too hard for them, right? Or whatever reason they have. And then there's certain people who wake us up to those realities. And then it's up to us whether we want to look at it, invest in it, and figure out how to build community around it, or whatever the thing is. It's up to us to figure out how we're going to act. And that's how you and I are here, right? Yeah. We're trying to figure out how do we center the most vulnerable to make sure that we're not propagating disease, disability, and like, how do we share that with other people? Because I know there's other people who want to.
Yeah.
And like right now, I feel like we're in the phase where it's like, okay, well now I found you, you found me through your band. So like music brought us together, you know, and music and mitigations together brought us together. That's why we're here. We wouldn't be here if those two things didn't exist.
I think most of the people, well, not even I think, I mean, obviously like all of the Mask Blocks and like clean air orgs that I've had the pleasure of like getting to meet and like work with, I obviously wouldn't know any of them if it wasn't for me actually trying to take COVID and accessibility very seriously for our shows originally. And you know, for a while that's what it was. I don't think I've said the name of the band. I'm in Glass Beach, by the way. I always am so coy about that because it's not the way that I want to meet people. So I'm just like, it's
Totally.
never the first thing that comes out of my mouth.
And I'll
Not that
probably,
like, yeah,
I
go
was
for
gonna say,
it.
I'll probably even record an intro where I'm like, we're talking to William from Glassman.
Sure,
You know
sure,
what I
sure.
mean? So like, we'll have context outside of our conversation. And so like, yeah, let's back it up a little bit, right? So like,
Cool.
you're in a band. The band is Glass Beach. That band has completed a mitigated tour earlier this year. You no longer, you made an announcement at one point that you're not going to tour anymore. So you did your last show. We're recording this on August 9th, 2024. About 2.5 weeks ago, you did your last show. A mask ban was passed in New York on Monday, 4 days ago. So we're kind of hot on that. And so I kind of want to back it up and just like get your broad strokes of your experience so far through mitigating and what that looks like to you and what it has looked like to you. Like, were you the kind of guy who immediately was like, okay, high quality mask, we got to go. I got to protect myself. Or like, is it something you learned along the way?
Yeah, I definitely like there was never a point where I stopped masking, but like I was wearing cloth masks for a long time, cloth like surgical masks. Like I never fully trusted surgical masks because I think I heard early on that they weren't like that great. But I would wear like a surgical mask with like a cloth mask like over it or something to like because I was like, oh, it's pressing it closer to my face, like that's helpful or whatever, you know. That kind of thing,
And like we have to
eventually
acknowledge that we were all learning as it was going on, and there was propaganda convincing us of certain things the whole time. Oh, don't wear N95s because we need to save them for like we all learned.
Yeah. There were like there were so many things. Like I remember the 6 feet apart. It's and like just how absolutely. I mean, even at the time, I was like, "How does that work? Like, how is that like helping us? Like 6 feet apart? I guess because we like then we can't spit on each other or something. But like,
And like even you
yeah.
saying that, I feel like we do need to acknowledge. So for some people, if you're listening to this and you don't know, airborne viruses are spread in the air, and that's why we wear masks to stop them from the mask creates a filter to stop it literally catches the virus. And so like I'm just giving this for whoever's listening. If you don't know, an N95 or a KN95 has an electrostatic system going on in between its fibers that literally catches viruses and other small particles. So that's why we wear them with a proper seal. And when we do that, guess what? It works. If you wear it properly and you stick to it, it works. I've been to 125 concerts in one. You've done a tour. You've done a bunch of stuff, I'm sure. So masks work. Let's set that. And it's in the air. There we go. That's clear the record on that.
It's in the air and it can linger for hours. Like the particles can linger for hours. So someone could like.
Although to clarify, I did watch the Mask America thing. I believe the science said something like 40 minutes was kind of the typical.
Yeah. If there's like no
depending on CO2
airflow,
levels.
yeah, no airflow, like no filtration, like there's no like HVAC or anything like that. Like I think 3 hours was like the worst case like scenario. It's like it could like in a
Like
yeah
CO2 at 10,000.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Have you been to you? Well, I could.
I mean,
we've been to some concerts
Yeah,
that
I
definitely.
I have the internet reading from your show in LA. I won't
Yep.
bring it up.
You can bring it up. That's fine. Hey, listen. Almost that entire crowd was wearing KN95s or better. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's even like that. I mean, this is part of why I'm stepping away from live music. Although, like right after we got back from the tour, and I swear I will get back to like
Yeah, we'll hit
going
it
to the
all.
beginning. When we got back from tour, I was like feeling so guilty about like even doing the tour, and I was like, I felt really bad about some of the compromises we made while we were on tour, some of the locations where we couldn't quite get like the masking compliance or whatever, heavy air quotes on compliance, because like it's just courtesy, really. It's just respect. It's not compliance. It's not like we're cops trying to enforce something. We're like community members trying to encourage.
And me as a fan, I will say, I never stopped going to shows. I mean, I did when they weren't happening, but then when they started, I put a mask on because to me, I was like, oh, well, this is the simplest form of love I can show for the artist to say, hey, I value that this is your job and I want you to be able to keep doing it.
Yeah. And it artists do notice and feel it, I think. Like even there are so many artists I know that don't mask it broadly. like in their personal life, but then express concern while on tour. Like there are, I'm not going to name anybody, like, but people who have come to me and who have talked to me about like, oh, every time I go on tour, I'm like worried. And I'm like, and they're like, I would want people to mask, but like our audiences won't. And like, and we get like, if we post about it at all, people are just like, are you kidding me? Can you just like talk about music? Like what, like, you know, it's personal choice, like this and that. And I really feel for those people. And I understand kind of being in that situation. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay. I'm going to back up.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, it took a lot of learning and a lot of, paying attention to the right people.
You said you wore cloth masks and you surgical and cloth. What was the iteration after that? Or like, what did you learn next?
Yeah. So I think for a long time, I mean, at a certain point, I had people in my life who were wanting to introduce like a little bit more risk, kind of go back to normal. And like, those were things I kind of wasn't comfortable with, but I cared about these people and I didn't really know at the time everything.
This is like 2021. This is like vaccines.
Yeah. We had been vaccinated. That was like, I mean, Glass Beach did a tour early, like after vaccination, like everybody had gotten their like second vaccine, like so they were like quote unquote fully vaccinated,
like fall 2021.
Yeah, it was around that time. Like, and in the fall of that year, we went on tour. We did a full US and got back, and we're fine, but at the same time, it's just like we got like so lucky. Because we were wearing KN95s at that point, like on and off, like if we were in like higher risk situations, and I can't even remember why.
That era though also had Vax cards for shows,
yes,
or negative tests for shows. So like,
the shows were mask required, and you needed to show your vaccination card. Yeah. So that
or
like,
negative
that's when
test.
We did it. Yes. Oh no, you had to show vaccine cards.
You
for
did?
us, like for our shows at that time. It was funny. The only show that wouldn't like require masks and like actually was like upset at us for wanting people to mask was New York.
What venue?
At the time. What venue?
Yeah, I used to live in New York, so I was just curious if you,
at the time
Baby's All Right. Like I'm trying to think what size.
I think it was Elsewhere.
Okay, but that's a newer one since I was there.
I don't know. I think it's in Brooklyn, actually. But like, that like there was some miscommunication with our like tour manager or booking agent at the time, and because we were just assuming all the shows were gonna be like mask required, we weren't like make sure everybody's on board, but it was like, but New York had just lifted their mask requirements because like of the vaccines. So yeah,
and then like 2 months later they were back again.
Yeah, but
and now 2.5 years later they're banned in Nassau County.
Yeah.
I did the math. 888 days from mandate to ban.
Oh no. Yeah, but that was that was like the one instance on that tour, and we did it like right after people were vaccinated and right before the Delta variant started.
And let me ask you, what was your knowledge and trepidation? Like, because I can tell you, at 2021, I was still like, I was wearing masks at shows, and like, I knew vaccines didn't stop it from spreading at that point. So I'm curious, like in that era, like what was your feeling going out on tour? Were you nervous every day? Was there anxiety, or was it like you're like, oh, I'm kind of chill?
No, it was definitely like nerve-wracking. Mostly because it was like at that point I had a little bit of faith in like vaccines that like even if we got COVID, you know, it wouldn't be like the worst thing in the world. And at that point, none of the people in our band had gotten COVID. And so like it was a pretty big risk, and I remember us being like, is this a good idea? We canceled behind the scenes. We canceled like 5 tours, like, and with like people who asked us to tour with them, like where we had like agreed previously, and then it would get to like close to the date of the tour and there would be a surge, and then I'd be like, I can't, like I'm not going to do it. And the rest of the band was like,
this was
yeah,
after 2021.
No, that was before that, and then also after. We like on either side of it, it happened. And the one, during that time, like I will say, like, not a whole lot of like personal information, like was still masking, encouraging everybody else to mask. Everybody else was masking, but it was like maybe cloth surgical and like sometimes KN95s, like, and not even like perfectly like well fitted KN95s. And there was so much like I didn't know. And then on top of that, like, you know, we would unmask on stage. So for our performance, we would take our masks off, and the audience would still be masked. But
And at that point, no air filters or anything.
No air filters, no far UVC, like nothing like that.
No fans, barely.
No fans, no like ceiling fans, no like opening of like doors and like windows if possible, like that kind of stuff. It wasn't like really on our minds. And also we at that point, like we were still of the size of band where like if you make any request, a venue just kind of like scoffs in your face.
Shit.
And even still, that happens kind of like all the time anyway. Especially with like COVID mitigations and stuff, a lot of people would be like, yeah, okay, go play somewhere else then, you know, like, all right, nobody's going to come to a masked show.
I think that's very true, but I think there are some places when the artist is requested. So I did a show at the Peppermint Lounge that I dropped filters off for like a month ago, and like the house manager, because it was an artist request, the house manager let me have free reign. Where do you want them? What do you want to do with them? Like because the artist requested them. So like there are people who will hear it and go, and I also think like, I don't know, some people are open to it and some people just like don't want to go there again. They're just like, it's so scary to me that I never want to return there.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And at that time, just like back, there, like every once in a while for like a special occasion, again, heavy air quotes here, like myself and some of the other people in the band would like dine indoors at place, and it would have to be like, you know, the idea was like, okay, it has to be a place where like nobody's there, and if we can eat outside, we will eat outside, and like that kind of thing. So like we just got like super lucky, and then after coming back from that tour, we chilled for a little while. We weren't going to play any live shows anymore. Like Delta came through, and then Omicron, and while Omicron was happening, we got asked to play a Pride festival, a youth pride festival in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we are a trans band. Like we are like entirely queer members. And it was like a dream of ours to play a pride festival, especially like a youth pride festival. And on top of that, like we were special requested by the kids, like by them, the teens themselves. They apparently do a vote, and they like voted for us. And it was like really flattering and like really amazing. And we were like, okay, it's one show, it's an outdoor festival, like we can be masked. We asked like the festival if they could like have like people masked, and they were like, well, we can't make the whole thing masked, and it is outdoors. And then I was like, can you make like the area around our stage like mask required? And they were like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So like it was going to be like, if you're near our stage, you have to have a mask on, like that kind of stuff, all sorts of things like that. And we rent a van, we all pile into this vehicle, we drive 13 and a half hours to Salt Lake City, Utah. We crash at like an old college friend's house, and the next morning we wake up to our lead guitarist sounding just absolutely awful and holding a positive COVID test.
Wow.
Like wearing...
So that means they got it before you had traveled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time he was working like food delivery. Like, you know, we all have like day jobs, and so like there wasn't much we could do about that. We were trying to limit contact outside of our bubble as much as possible, but like, you know, we also needed money, and you would think I think a lot of people mistake us for having a lot more money than we do. And
I think that's like a norm across society. Like,
yeah.
I live in Hollywood, and people see my name on like a Food Network show, and they're like, oh, that guy's got to be a billionaire. It's like, no, dude, like I haven't worked in a while, and like you work one show, we're gig workers just like the rest of you.
Yeah. So we needed those jobs, and then we all realized like, oh, we were in a van for 13 and a half hours together, and we weren't masked because we were in our bubble. Like it was our bubble still. And so there was like a moment, it was like, it felt devastating. We had to contact the festival people. It was that day, and like let them know we weren't going to make it. And it was funny because like the festival manager was like, oh, I was about to email you that I wasn't going to be there because I have COVID. And we were like, whoa. So it was really very disappointing. We still have never played Salt Lake City. I don't know, unfortunately. And I probably never will, honestly, at this point. Maybe not. But that was like that
Those
was
kids
awful.
deserve it, though. The kids
They-
deserve something.
Oh, 100%. A bunch of like, it was a pride festival. A bunch of queer youth.
Yeah.
Like that
In
would have been
Salt
a
Lake
fucking
City?
in Salt Lake City. That would have been a dream. That would
Yeah.
have been a dream to. That's why we love playing like Florida and Texas too. Like it's stressful because like not great places to be trans, and also like COVID wise, like we couldn't like there was not a venue. I mean, we don't have this like wide network, but there wasn't a venue that we could get a hold of when we were looking in Florida that would actually allow us to even encourage masking. Yeah, at the time, I'm sure there are some, and there are like smaller like DIY or like independently owned stuff. But like we don't personally like know them. We don't have a lot of contacts in Florida, so it was a little more difficult. Yeah, and then in Texas,
so that's 20. So look, hold on.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
that's 2021. That's no, that's 2022. That's like Pride 2022.
yes, probably something around there. I think
I mean,
so.
so if Pride, that's June usually, right?
Yes, it was June.
Unless Salt Lake City. So June 2021. All right. Let's move forward from there time wise.
Yeah. So we drove home with.
Did you all get COVID or just? I mean,
Yes. Yeah. So
Everybody got it.
Everybody ended up getting it over the course of a month, basically. So like, and we all lived in a house together. There were probably like a lot of ways that it passed from person to person. We were like masking throughout the entire house, like everybody was, and the people who had like tested positive were like staying in their room, and we were trying to keep ourselves like separate as much as we could, but like we also like we all shared ventilation, and that's like a thing that I know now that is like, a possible, like if you have like shared ventilation, like, you know, some people will say like tape a filter over the top of it and like close it, or if it's like too hot and you need like AC or something, just like, you know, getting like MERV 13 at least like filters and taping them up there to try to stop like the flow from room to room, that kind
right,
of
like
thing.
we're talking like 2022. We still didn't quite know fully.
No, yeah.
Right. It's like 2 years later now. It's like HEPA filter. Where's my HEPA filter? HEPA filter. Like, you know, CO2 open windows.
Yeah.
Like we have more things that we have learned how to mitigate. And
Yeah.
so it's always interesting here. Okay. So were you even opening windows? Were you like even?
Yes, opening
Okay.
windows for sure, and I was like stuffing a towel under the crack of my door. So I was like I don't want to pass this to anybody. But then I like 2 days I had like pretty mild symptoms, and then I woke up on the third day, and I guess I'm about to get a little graphic, just so.
I mean, share what you're
Yeah.
comfortable sharing. Like, what you do? Yeah, whatever you
Mostly,
gotta share.
mostly just for anybody listening to this. I'm about to
Trigger warning.
I'm about to talk about like getting very like violently ill and like throwing up and like a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna go a little bit further into detail here. So,
All right, content warning. Skip 30 seconds to 3 minutes ahead if you don't.
yeah, I'll
wanna
try to
hear.
do this very quickly. I woke up probably around like 9 or 10 a.m. and maybe like 9 a.m. and I didn't stop like throwing up every 5 minutes ish for about like 14 hours. It like painfully dehydrated me. Dangerously, my fever got up to about 104, and I just like we couldn't. And my fever wasn't going down, and it like kept going up. And it's like, you know, you want a little bit of a fever because that's your body fighting back, and like, you know, your immune system and everything functions better with like heat. But we know now, again, another thing that like COVID like will increase inflammation and increase like the heat in your body, and some like there is some evidence and theories that like part of that extreme like fever and heat is what leads to some instances of long COVID. So at least like there are some studies that are like hypothesizing that is like
the
a
extended
direction.
inflammation of your body.
Yes,
is what triggers the either reservoir or whatever the next phase of long COVID becomes.
Yeah, but at the time I didn't know that stuff. But all I knew is like my fever was up to 104 and it wasn't going down, and it just kept creeping up. And I spent the last 14 hours not being able to hold down anything. And that had happened to me once before the pandemic, where I got like really sick, and I was sick for an entire month. And there was a period of time where like I couldn't stop throwing up, essentially. And when I went into the hospital for that back then, they told me that like there's a thing in a muscle or something in your stomach that like is part of like what forces you to throw up. And mine had been like in a stasis, like fixed in the on position, basically.
Your like epiglottis was opening, just reverse peristalsis.
And so I was like, oh, I wonder if that's happening again. And so I go in, and it was. And they had to give me an anti-nausea medication that was like, and I had to be on it for a little while. And they were like, should like suppress it back down and like get it back to like sort of regulated. And they were like, but you have to be careful because like now, like while you're on this medication, you physically cannot throw up. Like you won't be able to. So just be careful.
It basically numbs your something. So like you literally, even if you drank poison, you couldn't throw up.
Yes, exactly. They would have to pump my stomach. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, something like that. So like I had gone in, my brother took me in.
So wait, we're now the first time, or this is your COVID infection hospital?
This is for COVID infection hospital. Okay. Yeah. So I went in, I laid on the floor of the waiting room for 2 hours. Because it was this is in
Washington or LA?
This is in LA. Kaiser Permanente.
just a mile down the road.
Yeah. So I was there, and like I was so overheated that like I needed like something cool, and the ground was cold. So I just like laid down on the ground, and then while the whole 2 hours, like every 5 or so minutes, I would like be dry heaving because there was nothing left.
Yeah.
And so I was just like laying there, and there was this one person who was in the waiting room as well, who about like 10-15 minutes into me being there, actually maybe like 20 or 30, stood up and was just like, what are you all doing? This person needs you. Like, and it was just like kind of like not yelling at the staff, but was just like, listen to them. Like, oh my gosh, like somebody do something, please. Like, and the nurses, I mean, like, I don't know, they're probably overworked and they probably didn't have beds and stuff. And they were just like, we're getting to them. We're sorry. We're trying. And eventually I got in.
But like, that's painting a picture. That's painting a picture of you being in a place where that person was looking at you and going, this person is fucking dying. You need to save this person's life.
Yeah, it was bad. I definitely like I was not entirely lucid either, like at that point, and I was in like a lot of pain, and I have a really bad like back. I've suffered from like chronic pain and like some disability for about like 15 years now, and that long portions of time where like I stay like laying down or like in certain positions, it'll just like completely throw out my lower back, and that happened while I was like laying down because I had COVID. And I was testing negative the whole time on like rapid antigen tests. I had symptoms like that bad, and I was testing negative. Like I took like 6 COVID tests in the course of like 3 days, and I never tested positive. And then when I went in and we did a PCR, they were like, yes, you have COVID. Like you're positive.
So you just had shitty rapid tests at that point or something?
I guess so. Yeah.
I'd like to point out I did just open a window. So if it gets loud from something outdoors, let me know, but also get some fresh air.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw my internet almost hit 800 and I'm starting to feel hot in here.
Oh yeah. I'm toasting in here, but I can't open a window because we have wildfires going on up here.
Oh God.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
All right.
But
so
I'll wrap stuff up here actually, and then like get to.
Yeah. Do whatever you got. Like.
Yeah. I'll just like speed run here.
I'm in no hurry. So if you want to talk, I'll listen and we'll go. So you do you.
Yeah. So I mean, I ended up recovering from that and recovered pretty well. I didn't.
But can I ask you, like, you were fucking on the ground of a hospital thinking you were gonna die at some point.
Yeah.
Or no?
I was concerned. There was definitely a moment where I was just like, is this what it feels like to be about to die? Because like, I don't know. I don't know. I've been like, I was a really sick kid. I was sick all the time when I was a kid. And when I would get sick, I would get really sick, and I was sick for long periods of time. and that like started to wean a little bit like the older I got. But then like, you know, somebody else could get a cold and then I would get a cold and I'd be out for a week or something, you know. They'd like be like, oh, it's a day thing. The amount of people who are just like, oh yeah, I'm only sick for like a day or two. I'm just like, what does that feel like? I have no idea. So I mean, like I have been extremely alarmingly sick several times in my life. And there are like every time it kind of gets to that point, like when I was in high school, there was a moment where like my temperature got up to like 105, like near 106. And that's like you're about to boil your brain kind of levels of like temperature. Yeah. And
you're literally denaturing the enzymes of your body.
Yeah. So like I have been to those points and every time it happens, there is like a moment where I'm just like, if I'm about to die, would I know? Would I know? Or
your mind would play tricks on you to think you're like not. You'll probably start hallucinating if you really were dying.
Yeah, or am I just like, is it just gonna feel really bad? And I'll have that like hope that I'm just like, well, I mean, or like main character syndrome where you're just like, well, this isn't gonna kill me. Right now, no, like this. So the COVID infection was the worst I'd ever been, like hands down, like not even close.
And that was like 2 years ago now.
Yes. Yeah. And that was the only time that knowingly that I had COVID. And I was like, and I lived with a lot of people and we were doing a lot of testing. And so it would be extremely rare to have asymptomatic COVID and like everybody in my household also like have asymptomatic COVID. So like I'm pretty confident, like, cause I lived with like 6 people at the time. I'm pretty confident and one of them was my partner. So who is now my ex. We have a great relationship still. It's fine. Yeah, we're great. But
no, I'm actually more worried seeing you do go this. I'm actually more worried you're going to throw up and not be able to stop. I see you like kind of like
me right now. Oh no. Yeah, it's the heat. It's the heat in this room. I keep like,
gotcha.
I'm like, I push on my skin to remember that I have skin. Yeah. So more over like, I don't know. I don't know if I really felt like I was going to die or not. I obviously didn't. And I'm here and, that's not to say like I couldn't have. I don't know. I mean, if anything, like the dehydration would have killed me. That was like the big like worrying thing at that moment was like, am I going to be able to keep like food and liquid down? I had to do like a transfusion, like infusion is what it is, not transfusion.
Of blood or
of just like
IV.
IV, like just getting.
They need to rehydrate you.
Yeah, essentially. And.
So like that recovery, does that recovery take a while to get back to a baseline, or was that it happened and then you long COVID symptoms immediately, like anything like that? Like
I hit a baseline about 2 weeks after, where I felt, I would say like 80% the same, but then like for a while afterwards, like I couldn't take a deep breath. Like for a long time, I couldn't take a deep breath. And then like since then, like I don't necessarily like, it's funny, I'm one of those people who's like, I don't think I have long COVID, but then like since my COVID infection, I've had like a lot of like leg cramping like issues, and I have like some gastrointestinal issues, and then I definitely like have some, I don't know, some of my neurons definitely are gone because like I never ever used to lose words, like ever. I would just like go. I could just like talk constantly. And now like these days I lose like the word garage or something. Like
it's a weird
lose
word.
Well, sure. But I lose like very, very basic words. And although I would say like part of that, like I never like to be like, oh, it's COVID. It could be. But I also think like, you know, since the pandemic started, I socialize a lot less and I talk a lot less just on average. So like, I think partly I'm out of practice and I'm not constantly like using my words. And
you're doing great right now.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah. If I look at the wavelength of my recording, I can't shut up, I think is the problem. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I've noticed some stuff and I also like get pretty like heart pounding like panic attacks now, that I never did before. But like part of that could just be like also the stress of like living through this. You know, everything to me is like has an answer, and that answer could also be COVID. So like
Totally.
I'm never one to be like, I have this thing because of COVID, but I'm never someone to be like, well, it's definitely not COVID, you know?
Well, because
So
the minimizing of it gets us nowhere. The minimizing is like that's like a confidence in the negative that is still a false confidence, right? It's
yeah,
like, I never understand the people who's like, oh, my allergies. It's like, did you test? No. It's like, okay, well then you don't know.
yeah, yeah. That was I've definitely experienced that with some people as well. Or like, it was funny. Our photographer who we brought on tour with us, like when we were talking over like mitigations and stuff on the phone beforehand, was like, okay, now I wake up every morning with a sore throat. So like, they were like, I just like, I don't want you to think that that's going to be COVID. And they're like, I will test if we like feel like I need to and stuff like that. Like, absolutely. But like, just so you know, like, I can't remember the last time I woke up and didn't have a sore throat. And I was like, you should probably get that looked at. You should probably get that checked out.
I mean, unless you're chain smoking cigarettes or doing something that's triggering yourself or screaming, like if you're a screaming, you know, you're a metal band or something like.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so now let's fast forward now to kind of this next tour. Okay, so you survived in 2022 after not doing Pride, and now about a year later, you're probably planning this next tour.
Yes. Yeah. And it was like, that was like difficult at all. Cause it was like, I was like, I don't want to tour again. Like you know, I can't handle like the disappointment of like canceling everything, and two, like I don't want COVID again. I don't want anybody else in our touring party to get COVID. I don't want to be like responsible for any of our fans getting COVID, that kind of thing. And I had so many conversations with so many well-meaning people, who I love, and who are very progressive, and I mean, like we all get it. And one of them, like at one point, said to me, like, "Well, you're not responsible if a fan gets in a car accident on the way to your show. So, like, why are you responsible for them? Like, it's not like you're forcing them to go to the show. Like, you know, if not your show, they're going to go to a different show. They're going to go do something else." And like, for me, I'm like, okay, I don't agree with that, because like, we are a special case. We don't tour. At the time, we didn't tour very often, and we also have like a lot of young fans who maybe like were their first concert. Like,
Sure.
There's so many of them tell us that, like, you're our first, like, you're my first concert. And it's like, they wouldn't have gone to, like, they may have not gone to a show at that point, like, if we didn't go on tour. So there's a little bit of that. But at the same time, like, I always talk to people, you know, about like relating it to a car accident or something. It's like, yeah, but like, our fans can't like bring a car accident home to their family and give everybody else a car accident. Like,
It's true.
It's there is like the transmission of it is something that
Yes.
needs to be curbed. It's like that is like, I mean truly, like, that would be like the key to finally like limiting or like eliminating the virus, is to like, it isn't it it's to not get it. It's to not spread it, not pass it, like, as much as we possibly can.
And like you saying that kind of reminds me of kind of some of my like 2020 mentality for myself was shows were starting to boot back up to work again. And I was like, okay, like I could go work a job, but there are so many downline people that are going to be forced to be out and about doing things and getting infected, that like, I don't want to be the reason that the guy who's the dishwasher on the show that I work for, you know, gets COVID and brings it home to his mom he lives with. You know what I mean? Like, and I know you know what I mean because we're having
Yeah.
this conversation. And so like, I just want to kind of connect. It's like, I don't have fans I was worried about. I just was constantly thinking about the downline effects of any of my actions.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the fact, I mean, like, I know you have people close to you as well. And it's like any added risk you bring into your life is an added risk that is brought into like your loved ones' lives. And there is like a level of like assessment there. I never like thinking about it like risk assessment. To me, like, I always would rather approach it like, how do I creatively and fulfillingly live my life in a way that is like aligned with my morals and like the safest it can be. Like sort of like, and because like, I don't necessarily encourage people to never leave their house. You know, that's like, some people have to. Some people have to stay home, like, you know, someone who is like severely immunocompromised, like maybe is going through like chemo and has cancer, and like they literally don't have an immune system right now. And so like there are so many reasons why people can't leave their houses, and like and I understand that. And also like getting to the point, like, I don't want to be in a position where like I end up being housebound or like stuck at home, because like maybe I do get a COVID infection and it doesn't kill me, but it like disables me or like makes me so severely immunocompromised that like then I can't do these things. So like with that kind of thing in mind, I am trying to I'm trying to assess like what I am comfortable with and the things that are still like dear to me, and like how I can do them, and if I can do them in a way that I align with morally and I feel like is safe enough to do, which is why like for a while I was doing like live music and trying to mitigate as much as possible, but and ended up like needing to kind of step back away from it because I was butting heads with myself, you know.
I do know, because I feel the same thing. And so like let's talk about that final tour, which like now kind of looking back is maybe your final tour ever.
Yeah, maybe.
And so like, you know, I know you tried to mitigate as much as you can. To tell me about kind of how you tried and what all the attempts were, and did you succeed?
Yeah, so I think everything culminated, all of my research and all of my like connecting with other organizations, getting in contact with Clean Air Club, helping start the Seattle Clean Air Collective here with like 7 or so like other really lovely people who definitely deserve their flowers, and they like put so much work into it. I think oftentimes.
So just so I clarify, so just in the prep for this tour, you listen to the Clean Air Club in Chicago, and you're starting a Clean Air Club in Seattle while you're prepping for this tour.
Correct. Yeah. Well, to me, I was like, the only way I can do this tour is if like, because I saw, I think oh gosh, what was the band? Something Flower something. There was this like small, like tiny indie band that was doing like 50 to like 100 cap venues or something like that. That did what we did before we did it.
Okay.
And they got like far UVC and like purifiers from Clean Air Club.
Cool.
And I saw that and I was like I contacted Clean Air Club and I was like, I don't know, do you borrow out to like non-Chicago bands? And they were like, no, we don't, but if you do a show here in Chicago, we'll happily like provide stuff for you. Like let's get in like contact with each other. Let's like organize that. And I was like, and then they were like, but if you want to start something in your own city, like here, I like made this PDF, like that was Emily at the time, made this PDF of how to start your own clean air organization. Like maybe look into doing it. You seem to have a little bit of time before like your tour, like think about it, see if you can get some equipment, and then you can use it on tour, and then like it can be something that people in the Seattle area can have. And I was like, that's such a good idea. And I thought about it and I was like, I'm like all this planning for tour and stuff. I was like, and I was moving at the time too, because I was moving from LA to the Seattle area. I was like, can I even do this? Like, I don't know. And I was like telling myself, like, it's like, I don't know how to do it. I was even looking at the PDF and I was like, this seems like a lot of responsibility. And like, I don't have a ton of like organizing experience. I only ever like made phone calls for like Planned Parenthood, like did phone calls for Nithya Raman in LA, and like did door knocking. I did door knocking and phone calls for Bernie Sanders. I like it was really, I only was involved in like tangential electoral like stuff, and like more specifically like local election kind of things when I was in like the LA area. But past that, I had like been, I had not been organizing. I had not been like involved in any sort of like substantial activism or anything. So I felt like super out of place, and I think I would have done it eventually. Like, I don't know. But then Clean Air Club posted a freaking thing that was just like, hey, everybody, like start your own. Like I remember going on Instagram and seeing that post, and it was like, I'm gonna put a list of cities below this. If you're in one of these cities and you want to do this, reply to it, and then all of you like get in contact with each other. And
Yeah.
I looked down, and it was funny. I was looking for the city that I actually am in, but it's smaller than Seattle, and so I was like, it's probably not going to be there. And I immediately saw Seattle, and I saw like 6 replies to it already. And I was like, all right, cool. And so like I replied to it, and I'm going to say like first name, because I don't know
Sure.
how these people would feel, necessarily. I'm sure like they seem fine with it, but like I remember like Taylor got like initially everything started and reached out to all of us, was like collected everybody's emails, like DM'd everybody, and was like, let's do this. And I was like, holy shit, this person's amazing. Like, oh my God. Like, cause I'm like, I had all the desire.
Same, dude. Same.
And I was just like, oh, but what if I do it wrong?
Sure.
Like,
I mean, I still feel that every day. I feel that right now while we're doing this podcast.
Me too. And yeah. And so like, we just like had some initial meetings, and we were just like, let's just do it. Let's get started. And so I like early on, I was like, well, I know I want to use equipment for Glass Beach. We have some like budget set aside for like getting stuff for tour, and just like, we have like tour budget. And so I was like, what if we like purchase like air purifiers, far UVC, like that kind of stuff, and get claim to it for the entirety of our tour. And then like, once we're done with tour, we relinquish all of it to the Clean Air Collective. And they were like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, if somebody pitched that to us right now for Clean Air LA, I'd be like, yeah, we'd happily take all of your stuff for free when you're done with the tour.
Well, yeah, because we like never play live. Like it was so rare that we ever played live, and like now it's going to be even more rare. And I was just like, well, if we play locally, we can request
Borrow
the stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we can borrow it. And so yeah, we ended up like before the tour and the lead up to it. Here's everything we did. And by we, I mean like mostly me, but like here's everything like I was doing. I got everybody on the same page. Like that's so important. Like for the first thing that you want to do, like saying like, we're going to do a COVID safe tour, like COVID safer tour. And like, I need all of you on board or this isn't going to work. And so like getting everybody there. And I, in retrospect, I learned that I did not do a deep enough dive with everyone, because there are things that like, when I think about COVID, not only is it constant, especially when I'm outside of my house, but like my brain is like accessing like every scenario in the moment, and it's not like distressing for me. It's just how like my brain works now. It's like COVID is no longer an afterthought; it's a forethought.
It's like the CPU mitigation, like under right. It's happening in the background constantly, and like we're not necessarily actively thinking about it, but like we are. It's now subliminal for us, right? Like now for us, it's like it just happens. We know how to mitigate.
Yeah. I mean, if I have a mask on and I don't have a sip mask, I need to take a drink of water. I step outside and I go away from everyone. And not only that, even if I like don't get far enough away from the venue, I'm like, I pull my mask down with my breath held, I drink, and then I put my mask back on and blow out as hard as I can. And then I start breathing back in again. And it's like things like that. And it's like, it's not like I'm thinking like, okay, what are the steps I'm going to do? Okay, I got to take step one, I'm just like doing it. Cause it's like,
but there was a time when it was,
yes,
you had to think more.
Oh no. It was like, it's become second nature now, because like for 4 or 5 years, I've been like learning as much as I can and thinking about it constantly. So it's like, it's taken this long for me to get to the point where I feel like I am finally like able to advocate for my own safety and like put mitigations in place that actually functionally and scientifically work.
All right, so getting the band on the same page. That's
getting the band on the same page, and then like booking agents on the same page and everything. If you're booking,
oh sorry, I wanted to ask real quick. So like, what did you miss? Like, what were the extra steps you need in terms of like you needed to go a little deeper? You said you think like you just feel like you needed to explain what do you think you could have said that would have changed anyone's mind or like helped? Is there anything that you in retrospect you're like, oh, if I had said that, it really would have made a difference?
I think I couldn't have pushed much further than I already did. Because like
you did as much as you could, basically.
Things. I mean, like no shade to my band at all. They are like more COVID cautious than 98% of the people that I know on the in my life. Like absolutely, like their KN95 or better, like masking like so much and like doing like all of these things. And they listen to me like for the most part when like I talk to them about it, but there are like elements of like the way that I live my life that I think some of them would view as like an extreme a little bit. Like when thinking
we're all on
about
a spectrum.
like,
Everyone's on a spectrum.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. So I think there were definitely
and like and just you're just saying you do the blow mask technique. Some of them are just taking their mask off and drinking inside.
Yeah.
Is that like and like
pull a mask off,
right? Societally,
inside,
right now, that's what it is. And like there was a period when shows had vaccines and like most people were masked. We're like, I would have done that too. We're like, yeah, take my mask off, drink some water.
I did that. I used to do that. Yeah,
same.
100%.
Now I'm N95 on. Don't break the seal until I'm out again. Like that's me now.
And then for me, it's like these are like small things that add up. It's like, it's like doing anything. Like getting to 85% is kind of easy. Like getting to 85% is kind of easy. Getting to 90%, that's a little harder. Getting to 95% is like so much harder. And then getting to like 99%, like on like anything you're doing, like if you want to be like good at something or if you want to be like accomplishing like something, like you can get a far degree of like pretty good safety measures and like mitigations for yourself and for your loved ones and the people around you. By just like doing like the standard, like what somebody like asks you to do and like and tells you to do. And if you don't do research that past that point, like you are at least like that much safer. For me, it's like, if there are small things that I can do that like inch me up to that like 99%, I want to do them. And like a thing like stepping outside to take a drink, like that doesn't impede me very much. I'm just like, okay, I can step outside to take a drink. That's fine. Sometimes, like if you're at a show, venues won't let you step outside. So, all right, I'm just going to blow through these.
Sorry to interrupt your podcast, but we are going to take a little break here. We're going to call this part 1 of the podcast. This felt like a good breaking point for the Mitigation Media podcast. So go find part 2 wherever you found part 1.